All praise and thanks are due to Allah. May his peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his family, his companions, and all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. Ameen. This podcast, my dear listeners, is a personal expression of thoughts and reflections. Me and my team are not affiliated with any political party, any organization, or movement. The views shared here are our own, rooted in sincerity, experience, and faith. I'm Jacquie Muhammad. And before we get any deeper into the stories of my life, allow me to set the stage by going back to where I came from. Northwest D.C. That's where it all began. The late 1940s is when I was born. Through the heart of the 1950s and the 1960s. And 1970s, and by the end of 1966, I had my oldest daughter. And by the end of 1968, I had my second daughter. D.C. is short for the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, which is split into four parts: Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest. Northwest always seemed to lead the way for everything that took place in D.C. Now, back in the days, nobody talked about anxiety, depression, or mental health. But trust me, people were hurting. I know, because I was one of them. And as a youngster, I suffered deeply from anxiety. It was the world around me, the news, the tension, the pressure, the racism. And as I got older, I realized something, that those things being discussed, being implemented, were not good for my peace of mind. So, believe me, I stepped back and I avoided everything to do with political activism, civil rights marches, and organized religion, and anything that would have the opportunity to degrade black people. Not because I didn't care, ladies and gentlemen. I did care. But because it triggered something inside of me, the anxiety, fear, anger, hatred, and sorrow. And for some reason, I knew early on that a lot of the systems in place weren't built for us black folks. And when I heard news about black people being degraded and black people being mistreated, neglected, and stereotyped, hated, I felt all of that in my bones. The hurt, believe me, it hurt. It was so detrimental that it was like something chewing on your heart, and you could not stop the pain from it. And at the same time, that caused a headache, and that caused an ongoing anxiety attack. But remember, nobody talked about this. And imagine going through life with an illness that you don't know what it is, but you know what triggers it. That, my dear listeners, is not something that you have to suffer from today. Thank God that today these mental health issues are being talked about, diagnosed, and treated. I work with a mental health therapist, and I'm going to ask her to join us one day and talk about the misconceptions about these illnesses and how to get the proper treatment for oneself, if God so wills. Now, what made the pain more intense was because the color of my skin. That's how God created me. I couldn't change it. I tried to when I was about 5 or 6. I used to try washing my hands and face with soap, trying to get the darkness off. But it wouldn't come off. So I did have a conversation with God about that. Then I asked him, do you love me? And as a baby, I heard him say, yes, I love you. And I asked him, why did you give me this black color then? Because people don't like it. That started my relationship with God. I had this relationship with something I couldn't see, But this thing made me feel so comfortable. My whole life was entwined with this new friend I had. And what happened after learning that I had to deal with my blackness was that I could not tolerate the things that stirred up that anxiety and caused that hurt. So I say again, I stepped back and I avoided everything to do with political activism, civil rights marches, organized religions, and anything that caused me stress, anxiety, and depression. So, my dear listeners, remember that for yourselves. If you find something that's causing you to have anxiety attacks, feeling depressed and stressed, leave it alone. That's my advice. Now, later on, it felt like the goal of society was to make me hate myself because I couldn't wash off the blackness. Grown-ups, people should know that this color, how can you change it? Don't people see that? How can people not understand that I'm not guilty of being black? This is me. But it always seemed that society wanted me to hate myself, to make me wish I was anything except black, to hate other black people. It was a mess, believe me, a mess. I refused to let that evil win and take away my mental health. I became an independent thinker without even realizing that's what I was doing at the time. I filtered out that noise to protect my peace so that I could function, grow, and develop naturally, and not according to someone else's likes and dislikes. And for that, I thank God. And it seemed that every time something would happen with black people, I always felt, oh God, I'm the one that's suffering. Because whoever it is that's black, it impacts and affects me too. So every time I would get that hurt to rest, something happened with a black person, it would open it up again. You know, that systemic racism is really real. But my skin color has to follow me throughout my life. I'm 77 years old now, and this thing still hurts. But back then, when I worked as hard as I could and had just as much talent as the next person, I just couldn't seem to break through those invisible ceilings. It was like success had a limit just for us. We used to say back in the day, justice means just us. I witnessed others living large with boats, mansions, living in a house, 3 or 4 people, 12 and 13 rooms, sending their kids off to college like it was nothing. As for me, I became a career student, and I loved learning, and I still do. It gave me hope. It gave me tools, and I knew that one day, my day would come. And all praises due to God Almighty, my day did come, but not what I was expecting, because that was not meant for me. I got everything that was intended for me, and knowing and understanding that I did have a very good life. I'm not going to lie, I had some very prestigious jobs that brought comfort to our family, and I gained a great deal of experience, talents, and skills from those places. My first husband provided handsomely for our small family, and most importantly, I had a normal amount of peace in my heart. But remember, nothing is perfect. So I never expected to be problem-free, anxiety-free, etc. Such is life for a human being. Nobody is perfect. As I continued to protect that peace for me and my girls, I stopped comparing myself to others. and learned how to love myself and accept myself for who I was and improve myself in areas that I could. I continued to tune out the noise to the point that I called mindset. Ignorance is bliss, which means what you don't know can't hurt you. Of course, that is not always true, but it worked for me. And even now, in 2025, I keep social media at a distance. Believe it or not, I am just getting my first account with social media because of this podcast. Because some things never change, and I need calm more than I need comments. Now let's go out for a moment. DC wasn't just my home, ladies and gentlemen. It was the stage for history. Dr. Martin Luther King marched in our streets. Malcolm X spoke his truth here. But the real heroes, they were the aunties, uncles, students, the barbers, the preachers, the ones who marched, sat in, showed up, and showed out. But don't let the name, nation's capital, fool you now, okay? Being in D.C. never guaranteed any equality. Segregation was and is real. It is unapologetic, and we were literally shut out from schools. Talking about us black folks. We were shut out from schools, neighborhoods, jobs, and imagine swimming pools, libraries, parks. Isn't that funny? It's funny to me now that I look back. But God is great because we lived. We really lived. We turned our pain into power. Power to keep on pushing and keep on trying. Our joy became our rebellion. We did not sit around and complain. We danced. We dressed. We dated. We held basement parties, community center dances, and WUST was a place where the cost to get in was 5 bottle caps from RC Cola. We roller skated at the Calorama Road skating rink. We made things work out on our own tight budgets. We wanted more than just to live in D.C. We wanted to matter in D.C. And I can imagine for blacks that still reside in D.C. today, even now in 2025, that spirit still burns. But my dear friends, what I hold on to most about D.C. Northwest is the soul of it all. I didn't just survive segregation in D.C. I carved out my joys. I gave birth to my daughters there. I earned degrees, and I held some of the most prestigious jobs. I built a better me, learned how to be resilient, confident, and gained a great deal of self-esteem, and touched bases with my faith, right in that same city, northwest of D.C. My dear listeners, that's why this podcast is called From D.C. to Deen, because everything, and I do mean everything, that I got from D.C. later led me to the Deen of Islam. Now, last but not least, April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and D.C., it exploded. Four days of rioting, lots of chaos, pain and struggle where many people died, thousands were injured, and over 6,000 people were arrested. I was 20 at the time, expecting my second child. In spite of me being 20, I was indeed old enough to feel the grief, the fear, and the rage that had been building for decades. We didn't just cry for Dr. King. We cried for every injustice that had been swept under America's rug. And D.C., it hasn't been the same since. Back then, Northwest was called Chocolate City. But after the riots, blacks were priced out, boxed out, and forced out. And white folks moved in. And now here we are, 2025. The more things changed, the more they stayed the same. But let me say this, in spite of it all, I had hope. And I had my faith. And I didn't know exactly where it would take me. It took me to the Deen of Islam. All praises are due to God. That's the Northwest DC that I know. That's where I'm from. And this is just the beginning of the journey from DC to Deen. Thank you all for your visit. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for your thumbs up. And now, remember, at the end of every episode, I'd like to leave you with a reminder to ponder on for the upcoming week. And here it is for this week coming. Quit worrying about the past. Things happen for a reason. God never wastes a moment of what you have experienced. What you went through before can be the catalyst for change that is needed tomorrow. Until the next time, peace.